guess what, Pauline? They picked me up on it. But they said, why are you being so patronising? Why are you mocking the situation? They said, can you calm down? They said, this isn't very nice. So we take a slightly different track, don't we, Pauline? Given that the people are listening, given that the people don't like me talking at you like a little child. They picked up on it, Pauline. I think they realise what the working class is. I think they realise that they're children. And they're about to grow up and stomp all over your political asses out in that Senate. For failures, for massive failures, for breaking crimes, for allowing a referendum to go through, for allowing the executive to put a referendum on the table in the first place, for allowing that, Pauline. And then the control you have over the executive is none. None. None, 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 none. And what does that prove, Pauline? It proves that the Parliament has zero control over the country, doesn't it? You've just proven that the Prime Minister and Cabinet's running the entire country from inside the Prime Minister and Cabinet, regardless of what the entire Parliament says. You've just admitted that. So, we're going to show you why, Pauline. And it's not very nice, and I'm going to make you realise this is the sentiment that's been sown all across this land, Pauline, and with immigrants too. Immigrants that came here for a good life and realised that their lives have been manipulated by banker types, Pauline, that manipulate you in that Parliament through the Prime Minister and Cabinet where you have no say. Where you have no say in the executive branch of government that they're trying to undermine inside the executive branch of government to a new executive branch of government going against the Supreme Court. Going against the Supreme Court, Pauline, you're actually committing a criminal offence in front of my very eyes called compassing. You're compassing the Crown, Pauline. You're compassing the Constitution, Pauline. Like these things are grave criminal offences, and you've now breached into religion in the Parliament, talking about faith and Aboriginal dream time and their foundations, which you seek to undermine your very own foundations, Pauline. So let's listen to this video in full. We're just going to let it run through, and then we'll discuss it after the fact, okay?
These are the names, some of the men that died, that came from Box Hill. Their memorial is not 1 kilometre from this building. As you can see, Box Hill Police Station. Yesterday, the pink pigs inside this building, serving their yellow masters from this suburb, raised the Chinese Communist flag above our own, on our soil, on our land. And there's no resistance, nothing. And we're sick of it.
He didn't know what to resist, but there's my men, Pauline. There's my men. That's been anchored for them to stand there to do these things now.
The time will come where justice will be brought to these cowards and traitors in these buildings, these bureaucrats that rule over us, that destroy our nation and sell us out.
They're called war crimes, Pauline. Fucking war crimes. And we ain't going to put up with them anymore. They're called fucking war crimes.
I talk to old people all the time. I work with old guys in their 60s, still slaving away on work sites. And they tell me they've worked their whole lives for this country. And for what? So that children can be minorities in the suburbs that they built. The suburbs they built with their bare hands.
They're gaining strength. Bring in more immigrants. That'll quash them down. Isn't that right, Elbow? Bring in more immigrants. Divide, divide, divide. Stay in control.
And their children are minorities. And the politicians and the academics, they parade it around and they celebrate it. They celebrate us being outnumbered in our suburbs.
They also openly lie, don't they, Nicholas Cerrone, on the TV in front of everybody.
Call it diversity and multiculturalism, and it's a good thing that that there's less of us. Our destruction is in their interest. It's a good thing they raised the flag of a foreign regime on our soil.
It's a good thing it's on the Supreme Court record, Pauline. It's a good thing it's on that Supreme Court record, isn't it? That foreign, curial, flaggy, international law-y stuff.
Men fought and died for in Kokoda and the Somme, and for what? So these cowards and these bureaucrats and the chief and the commanders of this unit can appraise these coward politicians that sit in the building opposite here and in Canberra and in the CBD. What did our men fight and die for? So these people that sit here with fucking smirks on their face, they think it's a joke? They think any resistance to what's happening in this country is a joke?
No, Pauline, they actively attack it to the point of demonstrating very clearly who they are in international law as a menacing force, Pauline, a menacing force on this soil, attacking innocent civilians under international humanitarian law, getting caught out as the war criminals they are, Pauline. And I know I said I wasn't going to comment through this, but you deserve some comments. Right, you're a war criminal thug force that got caught out in your war crimes, Pauline. In your fucking war crimes. And that international law, it ain't going away. And we, the people, we ain't going away either. You started to try and undermine our very constitution from an administrative position, and we ain't having it. We ain't having it.
They call us extreme. Extreme for what? Wanting to live in a country that our forefathers fought for and built. They tore mountains down and carved stone out of them and built this city.
But they got caught out, sympathising with real-world Nazis and parading their rainbow people stuff everywhere like the war criminals they are. And they got caught out. And all the people need to do now is realise exactly what we're watching. Exactly what we're watching. We're the Australian Imperial Crown, and they invaded our country, manipulated us, and turned it into this. And we're not having it anymore. We're totally not having it anymore.
And for what? For it to be sold piece by piece to these foreign aliens who conquer our lands with a smile on their face. The people in this suburb, the Chinese here, are not the only problem. They're not the only ones doing it. They're just taking advantage of the situation. They call us Guaylo. That means white man, but it's a slur. It means stupid white man. And we must be absolutely stupid to be giving our country away to these people.
Here's the thing, Pauline. We ain't giving it away anymore. We're going to watch you hang. Hang from the neck until dead in those military tribunals at The Hague for all those war crimes that you committed while you were on this soil in the last 70 years. And maybe those Chinese, maybe they're obligated to those United Nations, Pauline, and maybe they're the ones that'll drag you off.
To be forming ourselves as a minority in the lands that our ancestors built. How much longer must this go on for? How much longer will it take before our people wake up and realize? How many men in the future will stand with us when times get tough and we're a minority because of these cowards and what they've done?
We look at the very cowards themselves and we face our attention directly on them, Pauline. We don't scatter around and run. We'll band together and turn our sights directly on you lot. Directly on you lot. This what you haven't realised now is that we're no longer a scattered people, and our attention now is turned directly on you lot.
Australia is worth fighting for. Our ancestors believed that. The men not 1 kilometre from here whose names are the same names as the men that I served with in the army. The same names of the men in this police station. The same names of the men that we went to high school with and that we worked for at job sites. It's the same names because they're our kin. They're our kith. They fought to the death!
And we started something in an Australian imperial crown, in a stone of remembrance that we'll fight for the rest of our goddamn lives, Pauline. And if you think you're getting in the way of that, you're sadly mistaken. You're a bunch of fucking war criminals, and you got caught out.
And for nothing, if we don't win. Australia is worth fighting for. Australia is worth dying for. Australia marches on.
We're their sons, Pauline. We're their fathers, Pauline. We're their families, Pauline. And we ain't giving it up. You do realise this, that you're creating the biggest shit fight that there is, not only on the field, but at law. And that's a real problem, considering that Justice Lonergan already sealed in law. And you're now starting to compass that very law yourselves. You're now starting to compass that very law yourselves, having been left without law. Having been left without law. You saw that flag go up. You saw those ships come in this harbour. You have been left without law. It's very obvious. And when Justice Lonergan seals law on the Supreme Court record, that must mean that the prerogative right remains with us, the people of our Anzac, in lineage to those great war memorials in all of those cities wherein these foreign policy enforcers reside, Pauline, these rainbow people. So we see the rainbow people, and we see the rainbow people corrupting the First Nations with their rainbow people. We see the monetary issues and the financial wars between your Menzies model and the rainbow people. We see a fuel versus mining sort of interest going on here, in that you put paper bags in all the shops because the petroleum makes the plastic bags, doesn't it? And the petrol went up to $2.10 here. $2.10, Pauline. $2.10. And you saw those boys in front of that police station, and their heart and their soul pouring out, and the reasons. And I paid $2.10 this morning, Pauline, and plastic bags are no longer available in the shops, Pauline. That must mean that the petroleum people are having a problem. Is that Royal Dutch Shell and BP and those kinds of companies? Is that the Halliburtons and the Bechtels and the invading the Middle East type people versus what? The WEF type people and the jabby modification type people? Either way, you can see that we've defined who we are on the Supreme Court record underneath all of your rainbow people, Pauline. And we see that you work for the rainbow people by oath, by the very oath that you took to enter that parliament. And we see the Menzies model, and we see the whole entire problem going on behind closed doors, because we see our crown. And when we see the crown, it's a lot easier to see all the players on the table, isn't it, Pauline? And this is the sentiment that you've sown across Australia. And you think these boys are going to back down? They're my men. Whether they know it or not, Pauline, that they have a lawful right in international law to be my men, to raise that federal red ensign and be my men in Box Hill. The men of Box Hill right there, Pauline. Right, now what happens when the men of all these suburbs rise to those war memorials and raise those federal red ensigns at law, which is linked at law to the lordship of the Commonwealth of Australia, Pauline? The lordship of the land, Pauline, at law sealed on the Supreme Court record. And with the usufruct coming to a change or merger, that can't go ignored, Pauline. That just can't go ignored if these people don't want to be administered by you anymore. Right? The fraud and the war crimes have occurred. And I think the system's set up this way so that you would eventually fall into the trap yourselves and then be cleaned up for all of your crimes that you commit along the way, while the godly remain faithful and don't fall into all of those problems.